Good evening, everyone. This is Alidor Westbrook. I'm a volunteer with 350 Sacramento. And this evening, we're very excited to welcome Jennifer Donlin Wyatt to present on the Transportation Priorities Plan. Jennifer is the Sacramento Transportation Planning Manager. She has 20 years of planning experience, 5 of which are with the city, and that might actually be 6 now. Jennifer manages the active transportation team, the Vision Zero program, and a team whose work focuses on corridor and area transportation planning, transportation policy work, and shared micromobility. Her projects include currently working on the Freeport Boulevard Mobility Plan, Northgate Boulevard Mobility Plan, active transportation audits in North Sacramento, South Sacramento, the Fruitwich, Broadway areas of the city, and the topic of tonight's discussion, the Transportation Priorities Plan. So we are very excited to have Jennifer with us. And with that, I will pass it over to you to give us an update on the TPP.
Great. Thank you so much, Allie. And I probably should have pulled up my screen earlier, but let me get that screen up and running. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see it great.
Great, because it's not showing for me, but that's okay. We'll roll with it. All right. So tonight I'm going to talk about the Transportation Priorities Plan, what it is, what have we done to date, show you the initial prioritization, and then tell you how you can share your input. So as Allie mentioned, my name is Jennifer Donlin Wyatt. My pronouns are she and her, and I manage transportation planning for the city, and I'm managing this Herculean effort. And so before I talk about the TPP, as we affectionately call it, I wanted to make sure we're talking about the same thing and we all understand how the city manages transportation. First, talk about the infrastructure that we maintain. There are over 1,800 miles of streets in the city, 250 miles of bike lanes, 78 miles of shared use paths, so many curb ramps, street lights, crosswalks. All of that existing infrastructure requires that we maintain it, which requires a lot of effort to maintain, to keep it up. In addition to maintaining the existing infrastructure, since about the year 2000, City Council has approved or adopted transportation plans, about 700 projects within those plans. And so go forth and find funding for them. We expect those projects will cost about $5 billion. That's B with a billion. And as you might have heard me say before, the city's transportation funding comes from 3 essential sources. We don't have general funds that's used for other things in the city, but we have our gas tax, which is used to maintain the streets. Then the existing transportation sales tax measure, which helps support staff and local funding requirements that we need to apply for grants. But the vast majority of our work for transportation improvements come from grants that are competitive, with which we don't have a lot of say over what is selected. Now, let's just say that those all add up to about $42 million a year. And transportation projects are not cheap. About a mile of complete street improvements can cost up to $20 million. So we estimate it would take over 100 years to build out everything we have planned. And we don't have a way to prioritize all of that. How do we decide that the Stockton Boulevard project should go before the Northgate project or the projects on Fruitwich? So we need a process to prioritize them. And that's what this Transportation Priorities Plan is. It is working with you, our communities, to identify their values for transportation investment and translating that into criteria. So during phase 1, which we conducted last year, we did a lot of community outreach asking folks, well, what are your values for transportation investments? Last year, if you remember, we still under COVID, the vaccines were just rolling out. So most of our work was virtual. We had virtual gatherings, online Zoom meetings. We had online and paper surveys, and our online and paper surveys were available in Chinese, English, Hmong, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And the paper surveys, we took them to events that were existing. We also worked with the libraries. They're great partners, and they hosted the surveys for us, as well as some background information, again, available in all of those 5 languages. And then we attended a lot of existing meetings. We created social media information, and we did videos. You can see right here, we have Sue Teranishi, Joe Flores, Ann Stasbald, and Mr. Glenn Jackson, who helped us create local folks, just community residents like you are, doing videos to talk about why transportation is important to them. And we reached to a lot of organizations as well. In fact, we contacted over 100 groups to ask them to either, can we get on your agenda, or can you share this information out? And we talked to a lot of folks. And from all that, we identified what the transportation values were. We defined those into values, criteria, metrics, and points. This is a lot. I don't expect you to read all this on your screen right now. All of this is available at sactransportation.org. But the key thing is that City Council adopted these, and they're improve air quality and health, provide for equitable investment, provide access to key destinations, improve transportation safety, and fix and maintain the system. And we use this criteria will help us prioritize those 700 projects. So that was phase one. And now we're into phase two. Phase two is where we're at right now, where we have the initial prioritization, and we're asking for your feedback on that. We'll get your feedback and we'll revise and develop a draft plan that will again take to you and ask for your input. So since March, when City Council adopted the prioritization criteria, we have mapped the 700 planned projects, and that was a Herculean effort. And then we evaluated and scored them based on the approved criteria. And then we developed an engagement plan so we can reach folks like you, which includes developing a story page with maps and information about how we got here. Attendance at community events. So what events are we going to? As many as possible to let folks know about it. We're hosting 2 virtual workshops, one on the 24th and the other on the 27th of August. And then we have an online map comment tool. I'm going to highlight a little bit of everything here. We want folks to share their input. So we have these 3 main ways through the story page, the comment map, and the comment cards. And again, all of these are available in the 5 main languages we've been using throughout the process: Chinese, English, Hmong, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We've got our roadmap, and this is just an example list of the organizations that have agreed to let us come talk to them, or we're going to. But we're always happy to go to other folks. So if you know something, please let us know. And then the project schedule. So we're in August right now. We're collecting community input through September 6th. And then what we're going to do is review all the comments with a goal of going to council in October to say, council, this is what our initial recommendations are. This is what the community said. Council, what is your direction? Council give us direction. And then over the winter, we'll revise and we'll create that draft plan, which we'll bring back to you in February and say, communities, what do you think? Did we hear you right? And you'll give us input and suggestions. We'll revise again and then have that final draft plan to council, hopefully in April of 2023. So that's the overall of the presentation. What I'd like to do is take a moment and share the websites and the story pages. A moment while I share a different screen. Okay, great. So now I am sharing the story page. I'm going to scroll up a little bit, and I have to go a little bit slowly because when I'm zooming, sometimes my computer likes to freeze when I'm sharing anything other than a PowerPoint. So our story page tells the story of how we prioritize the projects. For those of you who want to get into the nuts and bolts of the process. It introduces the transportation priorities plan, which I just did with you. Defines what a project is, because not everybody knows what a project is. For transportation, what we're looking at what the city does. So it's not regional transit. That's a whole separate entity. Although if you know me, I love the bus. I want to do what we can to support transit, but it's not a core program of the city. But it's projects that have an infrastructure program to them. It helps people get around. We go over what we did during phase 1 of community values. And all of these are linked, so you can go back to our website and find out more information. We talk about how the projects were initially prioritized. And then what we do is we go into each of those 5 categories and talk a little bit more about what they are, such as improve air quality, climate, and health. This is also the Sacramento Northern Bikeway. If you haven't been on it, it's a wonderful trail. Then it goes into the nuts and bolts of what each one of the criteria within that value is. And so improving, supporting bicycling is the next one. So it gives a little example of what it is. And then it shows you the prioritized projects, the scoring of the projects based on this value of supporting bicycling. So the orange lines are planned projects. The dark orange lines, which show that it supports the criteria that improves bicycling. You can zoom in. So the project on the street, which is I Street, improves bicycling. You can see over here, though, the one up on J Street, maybe it doesn't improve bicycling as much. And you can do that and you can zoom out and in across the city and look at different areas. And then when you're done zooming around, you continue scrolling. The next criteria is supporting walking. And again, you can see the map and you can see what projects might support walking. So if I scroll in here, go into North Sacramento, see what's going on here. The dark green lines are projects that will improve walking conditions by including sidewalks, pedestrian scaled lighting, street trees, or marked crosswalks. The ones that are lighter green, like right here, maybe they don't support walking as much. So you go through this for all the criteria that have been identified, and then you get to the end of that one, and it's the summary for projects that support air quality, climate, and health. The darker the purple, the better it supports that goal. The lighter, not as much. You do that for all 5 categories and go through such as equitable investment. You might not know that there are many parts of Sacramento that don't have basic transportation infrastructure, that don't have sidewalks, don't have curb and gutter, don't have street trees or crosswalks. And so providing equitable investment supports that. And it also supports communities that have been recipients of racism and bias. And you can find out more information here about lacking basic infrastructure, communities that have been recipients of racism and bias. So I encourage you to go to this page. The other page I'd like to take you to is at the bottom of that story page and on our website is a link to the prioritization map. Where's the priorities? Where can I see them? You can see them right here. I'm going to go over the area. So the map is the city of Sacramento. It's infrastructure investments. Lines that are purple are high priority. Those that are golden are medium priority. And those that are green are lower priority. And that's based on those values that we talked about earlier. And so what you can do when you go to this comment map, it's a comment map, but it's also informational. It tells you about the projects. So I'm going to scroll in to the Northgate Boulevard. Northgate Boulevard right here is purple, which means that it's showing it's high priority. But maybe you wanted to know a little bit more about that. You can click on the purple line and there'll be a pop-up. And in the area here, it will tell you where did this information come? What plan did it come from? So for this project, it's the Northgate Boulevard Streetscape Master Plan. It also includes some specific sidewalk improvements, pedestrian improvements, and the current Northgate Mobility Plan. Let's say that you thought this was a good project. Well, hold on. What you can do is you can vote on it, just like this person voted on this. So this is also a comment map in addition to information. So you can say, I want to comment on this map. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. You want to place a comment right down here. Place a comment. Click on this little icon. You drop it on top of Northgate. See that green dot? You have that there. It means you're ready to do the next phase. And you can select, I expected this to be a higher priority. I expected it to be a lower priority. It's missing a project that was approved by the city. Because right now we're only prioritizing projects that have been approved by city council. And maybe we missed something. You know, we went back into the archives of the city, but it doesn't mean that we didn't miss something that we worked with you, the community, on. So if we did that, please let us know if we missed something. Or maybe we haven't done any planning there and you feel like there's a need that, you know, maybe it's hard to cross the street or you need a turn lane. You can provide that there as well, or you can provide it just a general comment. I'm going to say that I thought it would be a higher priority. And the issue is it should be a high priority because XXX, put whatever answer you want there. Put in your email address. And we ask that because sometimes we get comments that we don't really know what they mean. And we'd like to follow up with you and say, what exactly did you mean by that? So put in your email address and then your zip code. And the reason why we ask for a zip code is we want to make sure that we get good participation from across the city. Sometimes it's harder to engage folks in different parts of the city. And if we're missing input from a certain area, maybe North Sacramento, we want to focus our engagement and say, hi, how can we get folks in this neighborhood to provide their input? So you provide that in and then you click next. I'm not going to submit the comment because I don't want to mess up the system. So I'm just going to, of course it froze. I'm waiting for you. Here we go. When I click out of it, you can also see other people's comments. So I'm going to click on, let's see. I'm going to click on this one, which looks like it's 21st Avenue. Click on it and you get, the person wrote, I expected this to be a higher priority. Safe options for cyclists and pedestrians to cross Highway 99 are limited. The current conditions at 21st Avenue are not safe. Neighbors east of Highway 99 will need to access to the revitalized Franklin Boulevard. So let's say that you say, oh, that's a great comment. I like that. You can upvote it. And you could also provide your own comment that you agree with this commenter or not, and you can post that. So that is the overview of the prioritization. I think I left out one thing. The black lines here mean the project is funded, but we haven't started construction yet. So for example, we're putting in bike lanes on 34th over here. Hasn't happened yet, but the funding is allocated. We're working on our contract with the contractors to get that built out. We'll be working on that soon. So Ellie, with that, that is my presentation. If you've had any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was a great presentation. Heard it. This is my second time now, and I feel like I learn something new every time. So really appreciate you coming to share with us. Do we have any questions? Let's see.
Oh, while you're looking for questions, I forgot to mention that I'll be giving the same presentation in case you want to see it again or you want to directly ask me a question on the 24th, this Wednesday, and then on the 27th at 10 a.m. in the morning on Saturday. We're trying to reach as many folks as possible, but it will be virtually the same presentation as this one. We seem to have lost everybody.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Ah, there we go. You know, that good old mute button that I forget. Just talking to myself over here. I was curious if there was any interesting findings, I guess, that you and your team found from the prioritization effort. Was there, any parts of or any projects and approved plans that you thought might score higher than others, or any comments that you've already received from community members that you were like, oh yeah, that's actually going to be really helpful in this prioritization effort?
Yeah. So I think one thing that was unexpected with the prioritizations is the class 1 or the shared use paths didn't score as well as we would have thought. And in evaluating that, I think it's because one of the criteria is safety. And the basis for that criteria is the Vision Zero high injury network. But the Vision Zero high injury network is only on streets, and our class 1 paths are off street. So they can never score that point. So they start at a 12-point deficit. So I think moving forward, one of the recommendations we want to make to council is to incorporate or expand the safety criteria, maybe a certain amount of feet out, so that maybe trails can be competitive if it's a parallel path to a street with a high number of injuries and fatalities. That's something we didn't realize. And then the other thing I think we learned from the community members that we hadn't realized was that we found a plan that we didn't know about. So there was a Marconi Station area plan improvement that I still have to find, but it was in the comments, and I was like, oh, I didn't know about this plan. So we're going to do a little bit of research and find out if we can learn more about it, and if appropriate, incorporate it into our work.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's always good. I know, I'm sure there's lots of members of the community that have, lived here for generations and
Yeah.
have a better idea. So that's great that was able to be highlighted. And also your point around separated class 1 facilities, maybe scoring at a disadvantage. Yeah, those are a lot of people's preferred way of getting around by bike. So yeah, I would hate to see those be at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any additional comments in the chat at this time. But I really, let's see, we do have one from Alex. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, just letting us know he plans to follow along and stay connected with the TPP effort.
Great. Yeah. If Alex or anybody else is watching, if you haven't already signed up for our email list, sign up for it at sactransportation.org. In the middle column at the bottom, it's sign up for email updates. Please sign up. I promise not to spam you, but we will keep you updated. We might send 1 or 2 more emails this month, just letting folks know about our webinars and reminding folks to provide their input. But it's a great way to keep up. Exactly. Yes. A great way to keep up to date of everything.
Awesome. A great reminder for folks.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. We really appreciate you coming to speak with us tonight, sharing a little bit more about the TPP. I guess the last question, is there a deadline for when you're hoping to receive comments from folks on this effort?
Great question, Allie. Yes, September 6th is the deadline that we're looking for. I, however, know that we're going to a couple of community organizations in North Sacramento on the 7th and 8th. But we're hoping to close it up by the 6th or thereabouts. So I have enough time to write my staff report to the council in October, because it takes some time to get them into the system. But yeah, so I would say the first week in September is when we like to have comments by.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So everyone heard it here, September 6th. And then that means you're expecting to go to council in October. Do you have a date in October, or is it to be scheduled?
To be scheduled, probably mid-October is my guess.
Okay, perfect. Well, we will all be keeping an eye out for that. I think we've really enjoyed being kept in the loop about this effort and, advocating for some important active transportation projects in the city. So again, thank you so much for spending the evening with us.
Of course.
And that concludes our discussion for this evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.